What's up? And happy Sunday to all. Yes, it is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. And I am glad to be here. Glad to be here. And waiting for a few to show up. And then we will get it on and popping. All right. All right. Okie dokie. So, as I wait, I will kicking not I won't kick the mic stand, that's for sure. Can't be doing that. You know. But it's been a good week for the most part. I cannot complain, and so if you're just logging on, Trusty Studios in the building. Good to have you, Trusty Studio. How are you? What's going on in your world? Talk to me. I'd like to know. One thing with these live streams I'm trying not to do is talk at people, but it's an interactive thing. So tell me what's going on in your world. How was your week? You know, what did you do? What did you experience? We're going to get into the Q&A in a little while, but as it's just you and I, let's have a dialogue. How's it going? And I'm going to wait for a few more. And then I'm going to start blabbing. Got my water ready for action. Yes, these live streams are pretty cool, you know, for the most part. I can't complain. Clip Wilson, ha ha, my man. What's going on, brother Clip Wilson? Yeah, man. As always, working on myself. Says working. Hey, listen, you know, man. I think we all are. You know, this is, you know, it's one thing. What about me? Yeah, like I said, I think we all are, man. Because being on lockdown, you know, it will bring out the best of introspection, if you will. You know, so it's all good though. Mr. Pirate Brain. Peace. What's going on, brother? Talk to me. How are you doing? And what's going on in your side of the world? Missed you last week. And Clip Wilson, I like that name, man. He's, you know, they got some people. I come across a lot of folk, you know, and it's all good, you know. I mean, because everybody has a different name, but I love some of these names of some of the participants in the live streams. But this is cool, Clip Wilson. For those of you who want to step out from underneath the covered wagon, if you knew who Flip Wilson was, then you are of a certain age. So it's good to see someone taking a take on his name. But yeah, it's all good though, brother. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're participating. And yeah, this is cool. This is cool, brother. Yeah, this house arrest. Bro. I tried to normalize yesterday by going out, and because it was relatively comfortable here in the city and warm, and it was a nice chance to get out. But as much as one wants to get back to normal, the normal checked out about 6 weeks ago, man. So you can forget about normal. Normal ain't gonna happen for a while. So yeah, I guess we got to deal with this new normal, but it's all good. Clip Wilson says, yeah, he's paying respect to the legendary Flip Wilson. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jeremy, the devil made me do it. Yeah. You remember that, right? I think we need to quit while we're ahead now. We starting to show our age, you know? Trusty Studio asked me the question, how's the studio makeover coming? It's on pause, man. It's on pause, man. I lost a ton of work that was slated, and you know, we got to, when you're in, when this is your livelihood, you got to make adjustments. It's a good thing that I didn't get out ahead of myself based on the contracts that were already signed. But you know, with being an independent, you don't get like liability insurance built into it, or that just in case situation if something like that should happen and you should lose that money. And yes, in about the earlier part of March, I was in the middle of 3 projects, one of which I just finished getting paid for because the work was done and it was easier. It was a audio book that was done, finished that. But the other 2, one completely fell through, and that was a huge, that was going to carry me over through the summer, and that just fell out. The bottom of that fell out altogether. And the other one is still ongoing, but it's going to be a question of how we're going to get back together, because, you know, unless, and this is one of the things I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues about, there's a level of liability when you're a business owner you got to be careful with, because you know, let's just say, for instance, you open your doors back up and someone wants to pin the blame of catching this virus on you. You know, oh, I went to your restaurant, or I went to your hair salon, or your nail salon. That's why you got to be very, very careful with how you're going to get back into the flow of doing business. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be leaning on a lot of my colleagues about. You know, are we an insurance company's nightmare at this point is the question. So yeah, it's been quite a thing, man. But yeah, I have to put the studio, well, generally the whole upgrade on hold for right now for financial reasons, you know, because when things are uncertain, you know, you can have an X amount of resources as a backup, but you don't want to use your backup to, you know, proceed forward with making purchases that may not yield you further work. That's just, you know, they say throw good money after a bad situation, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, the studio situation is on hold. Clip Wilson says he's fairly young with an old soul, but always respect the pioneers and elders. Good thing, brother. Good thing. Good thing. Michael Albert asks the question, how did you find studio space to build? Well, how did I find studio space? I purchased my property. That was the thing. That's a whole other story, but I purchased the property with that thought in mind, that property that I purchased, and even anything that I buy from this point forward, is going to have enough space for me to build in, because I'm a creative and that's just what I do, you know. And that's how I got to this place. Before it was rentals, and after I reached a certain point in time where I didn't want to keep paying rent, I bought a property and built in the property that I bought. So Mr. Pirate Brain asks the question, I want to get the warm audio mix bus compressor, but I don't know. Oh, you want to ask, are you asking if I use it often? But or if you're not going to use it often? Well, in terms of your own personal needs, this is how I approach equipment purchases. With some people it's arbitrary, but with me it has to be an investment, or I'm going to make that money back on it some kind of way. To me, it just doesn't make sense to make arbitrary equipment purchases unless you're leveling up. If you're leveling up, yes, it makes sense. But if you're just going to be putting it in a rack just for beauty purposes, then no. Then you got to say to yourself, how is it going to be used? Because the one thing about the mix bus compressor is, well, the warm audio at least, it's a VCA compressor, which means you got to be a little, you know, you can't be heavy-handed with it because it's going to give you a heavy-handed effect. You may or may not like that. Now, that was cool back in the day if you were doing a certain type of music that required a level of bus limiting, if you will. But if you're just trying to get, you know, if you're trying to use it in a more judicious fashion, you may not like the overall effect it'll give to your sound, if you will. Everybody's mileage, may vary. It depends a lot on the music that you're doing. So if you're going to purchase the Warm Audio bus comp, then you have to understand, how VCA compressors react. And one good way is to listen to a lot of music that was done in the 90s, to get a good idea, because SSL, which is what the bus comp is modeled after, dominated. They were one of the top console makers in the 90s. So a lot of 90s music was created. It's going to be some research on your part, from a musical standpoint. But I think it'll be best if you listen, to what effect that is going to have on your music, and then make an informed decision, because maybe you want a more NEVE-ish type sound. All of these things impart some sort of sonic footprint on what you're doing. So you have to be happy with whatever sound it's going to give you. And again, like I say also all the time, if you're buying something, make sure you can return it in 30 days. Because some things just don't work out. And you don't want to be stuck with something, I got to eBay this. Who has time for that? You don't want to have to eBay something if you don't like it. I'm sending it back. It didn't work out for me. I want my money back, or I'm gonna buy something different. But I think what I'm going to wind up doing in the future, because there's so many different types of compressors that you could use, and I think between FET, optical, VCA, diode bridge, they all impart a sort of sonic footprint. So I think I'm gonna probably do a video to and it'll probably be a collaborative video with several of my colleagues, so just to get to give you rather a different perspective rather than my own on what you should use and when. So I hope that answers your question. But the bus comp can't be beat for the price and the features. You can't beat it. So I mean, like I said, buy it, try it, works out, good. If it doesn't, send it back. That's my advice. Trustee Studio said that he lost 4 projects. However, God is still good. Yes, we're in a different economy. If you're a person of faith, you can't wallow over it. Yeah, while it would have been good to have that money, it's even better to have your health. So I'd rather have my health than all the money in the world. So yeah, God is still good, brother. And Mr. Pirate Brain made a comment, says they are passing a law that you can't, I guess it would be sue a business for catching the virus. I don't know, man. Insurance companies, bro, business, that's a whole other topic that I don't want to get into. And I think it would just be a smart business person would err on the side of being sued, and at the same time thinking, what if I'm sued and the insurance company don't pay out the settlement? Man, you could lose your shirt, man, and this is your livelihood. Who wants that to happen to them? So it would be a tragic thing if that's the case. But I would just be careful if I was anyone thinking about just opening their doors but flooding the studio with a bunch of musicians, and next thing you know, here come one, he cough all over everybody, then they get sick. It's a mess. Nah, this got a domino effect. Let's all reopen when they get the vaccine. How about that? That's the smartest thing to do. Tim likes music. Say, Warren, what's happening, man? I'm doing good. On the replay, you could catch me blabbing about how the week has been, but it's all good, brother. I'm glad that you're here. And Mr. Pirate Brain, do I use the bus comp often? I haven't, because I haven't been working. I mean, I feel like this is always, when you have downtime, it's always a good time to brush up. I've been, looking at a lot of live streams from my colleagues and people that I admire and things of that matter. And, doing some piano playing, a lot of practicing. I still practice every day. So I have a lot of free time to do all the stuff that maybe if I'm in the middle of a project, I don't have time to do. So, yeah, it is what it is, man. I'm not gonna, cry about not, being on a steady flow of work. But, like I said, I have my health, and your health is worth more than all the money in the world. So it's all good. Clip Wilson asks, do I have any experience with Sterling microphones from Guitar Center? No, I don't. I've heard about them. I don't think, and for the time that they've been around, I've never really been terribly impressed with what they've had to offer, and right now there's so many other microphone companies like the Lewitt that I'm speaking into right now that are, just killing it right now. So I mean, if you want the best of quality sound wise, and if you're a person that doesn't have time to EQ vocals or instruments, this Lewitt LCT 440 is by far one of the best purchases you can make, man. Michael Albert, how did you learn to become a studio engineer? Wow, that is a long story that starts with me becoming a teenage father. Okay. And I have several of my friends that have had very, very, very highly successful music careers. And, I was always the straggler, I always make the joke that I was the guy with the one talent, whereas my friends had like 5 measures of talent. My one talent that I loved, which was drumming, required much more work than my engineering. Engineering just became like natural to me, as for some people just playing an instrument, they'll demonstrate a facility for something that's just natural, and that was my thing. I had a natural aptitude for understanding how things work, and from there just blossom into something. And from me wanting to be a musician to me transitioning into being an engineer was a necessity, because I was becoming a father. As much as I wanted to be a player and spend most of my time, and this happened when I was just going into college, as much as I wanted to spend most of my time practicing playing, the requirements of fatherhood made me have to take a job doing what my second talent was, which was learning engineering and being an engineer. And from there I built the place that I'm in from the ground up, starting at zero, and arriving to where I am today, so. But the good thing is that if you're just starting out, the most important thing I think youngsters can take from us who have been around for a while is the importance of relationships. And regardless of whatever level you're on, whether you're a stellar pro, because I know them all. I know people at the top of the mountain and those just starting out. Regardless of wherever you are, relationships are of utmost importance. Now, I'm not talking about being a sucker for somebody just to get your foot in the door. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about developing genuine relationships. And I've been blessed in that respect, that if I call which I don't do, if I can call the names of people that I know personally, that I can dial their number today, that are highly successful musicians. And they've always looked out for me, and I've seen them grow and start at one point, and now they're at the top of their game, and some of them are, sharing their experiences at the same time. So the importance of relationships can't be understated. Like I said, you don't let people take advantage of you, and not like you're going to be a butt kisser to get ahead, but at the same time, when you don't know something, reach out to somebody. And nowadays with the kids, it's easier. You can reach out to people, and some of the more seasoned pros are flattered. Like I sat down and at the last AES and was talking with Bob Clearmount like he was an old friend of mine. Talking about things that the New York vibe in the 80s and the 90s. And he was like, and like Michael Carvin. I one day I'm on a gig and I saw Michael Carvin in the street. If you don't know who Michael Carvin is, he's one of the greatest legendary jazz drummers there is. I was like, yo, Michael Carmen. He's like, at the end of our discussion, he was like, you know what? Hey, man, for stopping by. I'm like, hey, stop. Thanks for stopping and saying, yo, Michael Carvin. So, you know, if you have an opportunity to reach out, there's so many people out there that are a wealth and a depth of information. Now, with that said, in the same respect, the only beef I have with some young people is that they, you know, they want to be told how great they are, you know, what can I get and how quick I can get it, and I'm gonna move on after I gotten all I can get from you. And that's the wrong approach. Because one thing, you know, old folks may have, and I'm getting up there in age, we can smell crap from a mile away, you know, and I hire, you know, engineers, young engineers on occasion, and I know that they're here just to see what they can learn or pick my brain from, and then they're gonna run at the same time. And then I have those that are like genuinely vested in whatever gig that I'm giving them, you know. And like I said, you can't understate. I don't want you to ever understate the importance of relationship, you know, because it's about, I mean, after we off the gig, can I break bread with you? You know, are you a drag to be around? Because some young folks are a drag to be around. I mean, literally, a dark cloud walks into the room when they show up. And I'm like, I don't need that vibe. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to become or start a career in anything, understand this, young people, no one owes you anything. No one owes you anything. You got to pay your dues. Everybody got to pay their dues. If you getting on a $50 gig, you may get a $50 gig. I'm not advocating you take a $50 gig. What I'm saying is that sometimes the money may not be there, and you got to understand, well, maybe the value of being in the presence of someone who's going to pour in you is greater. So you got to weigh things in a balance. Like I say, you don't be a sucker for somebody, but at the same time, what value are you going to get from this relationship? It's not about what somebody can give you, because nobody owes you anything. What are you bringing to the table in terms of your hunger to learn? Because one day, young person, you're going to be older, and you're going to have to pay it forward to someone else, because they're going to carry the torch. You know what I mean? So it's not about, you know what you're going to get, how you're going to get, you know, and I hear this on occasion. I should be paid, or you should be paid what? Minimum wage. Because half y'all can't solder cables. Half y'all don't know a whole bunch of stuff beyond Pro Tools. You can't troubleshoot. And that's no shout. It's all the necessary things that you had to know in order to be a successful engineer. That's required. You know, so if you empty yourself, I always say an empty vessel is easily filled. If you're empty and you want to learn, someone who's been around the block for a while can tell you, oh, that person is teachable. But if you come in with this attitude, like, and I've had those, man, I'm honestly have had those. They come in, you leave them at task, and what you catch them doing? They on their phone, texting. I'm like, are you serious? Dude, I'm like paying you by the hour. You know what I mean? Get off your phone. I don't want to see you on your phone. You know what I mean? This is, or especially if this is a client gig, it's even, I'm going to ride you harder. Because you're not going to make me look bad. Because they're signing my check, and then I'm going to sign yours in the end. You know what I mean? So, young people, it's about relationship, and nobody owes you anything, and empty vessels are always easily filled. Those are the 3 things you need to take away from my blabbing session. Okay, so Trusty Studio says, let's talk more about working outside the box more. Working outside of the box. Well, I am going to get in touch with someone. I'm not going to call their name out. I don't know what their availability is, but this guy is a very highly respected mastering engineer. Walls of platinum and gold records. And he was the deal in New York in the 80s and 90s. And I'll have him explain to you the significance of working, well, getting back to working outside of the box from a technical perspective. because again, if you've been at this for a while, you know that whenever you're delivering product to a end user, a consumer, or someone who's going to be the go-between before it hits the market, you have technical specifications that you must adhere to. You must adhere to. So with that in mind, you have to know what that spec is, one, and you have to adhere to it, or it's going to be rejected. Period. No one's going to take substandard audio if it's not meeting the requirement, whether it's for a television mix, whether it's for Spotify, iTunes, or back in the day it was, radio, or whatever the case may be. Whatever the end user required is what you had to deliver to spec. If they gave you a particular spec, it had to be met, or it will be rejected. So that's why I'm getting back to that, for that reason, because a lot of the streaming, when I was handing it off to other people, if I did hand it off a client's project to let's say CD Baby, okay, they're replicating through CD Baby, and I was wondering why the mixes felt or sounded a little thinner. Then I'm talking, reaching out to a colleague of mine in the industry, and he was like, you got to get outside the box. You got to start providing higher resolution masters, because their codec is killing the master you're sending. Every time you listen to the master in the studio, it sounds great, but it sounds a little bit on the thinner side once it's, in iTunes applies their codec to it. So, codec is the key word. Look it up. It's a compression decompression algorithm that they apply to your music, and that's to get it to stream properly or at a constant bit rate. I'm getting a little bit more technical now, but that is the reason why I'm mixing more outside of the box, mastering rather more outside of the box. For that reason alone, I want to be able to provide 96K or 192 resolution files. And because I'm doing a lot more acoustic music now, it's even more important, because acoustic music has a greater dynamic range from soft to loud than probably any other genre. Whether it's, if I'm doing acoustic, like I did a vocal ensemble recorded live in a cathedral, give you an example, that has a greater dynamic range, so you have to be able to meet those requirements as needed. If you wanted to translate well, that's what you have to do. You have to provide as high a resolution, and then when they apply the codec, it's less affected, because you sent them a 192K file. It's less affected now. The compression decompression algorithm doesn't have as much of an effect on it, because you gave them such a high resolution to start out with. So that's that about me working more outside of the box. And I suggest that if you're going to be providing content and music to iTunes and Spotify, you do the same. Okay, so let's get back to the questions. Mr. Pirate Bray says, time to make house music. Yes, sir. Do you track through plugins? Derek Chapman X. No, absolutely not. No, sir. No, sir. I know that there are tons of people who live, die, and swear by tracking through the UA stuff. Nah, you get a different dimension. Again, it gets back to Derek is who I'm addressing right now. There's two classes of people that are engineering nowadays. And I've come to this conclusion. And this is as of last, because when I was talking with Bob Clearmountain at AES, he said the same thing. I said to him, in the box, out the box. He's like, out the box. And there's a whole lot of folks that their point of reference is tape recording. And if you've ever sat in a studio environment between two speakers, near field, far fields, and listened to a playback in a controlled environment of that nature, then you'll understand what I'm talking about and understand why I say I won't track through plugins, because plugins are a two-dimensional picture of what just happened. You know, going through a plugin like the UA, it sounds great, but a UA 73 and an actual NEVE 1073 do not sound the same, and there are plenty of examples on YouTube to that effect. So, do I track through plugins? No. Will I ever track through plugins? No. Especially if I'm doing client work. No. You know, because they know what they want to hear, you know, and now maybe 10, 15 years from now, that might all change. Because I have 15 years from now, we are all 15 years older, and there is a different breed of client on the horizon who maybe that's their point of reference, tracking through plugins. But we're still in a transitional period where this technology is still somewhat new, and the point of reference for those of us 40 and over is still tape. You know, and you know, we went from, you know, audio analog tape to ADAT to Pro Tools. You understand? So there's a three-dimensional thing that takes place that our ears are just tuned to hearing. And the only way I could get you to understand that is to advise that you listen to a lot of 90s and 80s music. And then listen to what's considered popular music now, and let your ears be you'll hear it. You'll hear it. You know, if you're listening intently for it, you'll hear it. You know. And Clip Wilson, the Lewitt audio. I'm going back to look at the. Never heard of that mic. Yes, look at the Lewitt. It's definitely one of the best mics that you could purchase nowadays. Jonas, my brother, how are you, man? Jonas Beck, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And he asked me, what do you think of the Art voice channel? My brother from Denmark. I think Art has come a long way. I don't think they get the respect that they're due. And I don't know whether it's because they're not putting enough money into marketing. But, you know, the company Art reminds me of a lot like Samsung. You know, like back in the day, Samsung was considered the beautiful pronunciation. Okay, my brother, good. Considered the cheap brand, and Art is looked at from that respect. But the good thing is that they're coming of age, you know, and as they continue to grow as a company, I believe that they will rise to become one of the better audio brands of our time. So do I think that what do I think of the voice channel? I think it's a good investment for those who are starting out. It won't yield you the same results as like maybe some of the higher end preamps that you could purchase, but it's a good start, you know, and you have to buy within your budget, you know, and that, like I said, in the end, it just gets down to the song. It's less about the equipment, more about, you know, your ability to produce or to compose good music. So Art is one of the better brands, most definitely. And Jonas also asks the question of what mid-range to high-end studio monitors would you recommend? Okay. Fasten your seatbelts for this one. I have approximately about 8 pairs of monitors. About 4 of them are analog, and the other 7 pairs of monitors, 4 analog and 1 and 3 rather are powered. Now, I'm gonna put it to you this way. I don't think, and this is for what it's worth. Monitors are like shoes. You know, like good gym shoes. You know, you could go out and buy a couple of $100 pair of Jordans right now. Excuse me. You could buy a couple of $100 pair of Jordans right now. And if you run around on concrete, they're gonna wear out. And what I've experienced through the years, and I have both extremely expensive monitors, which have crapped out on me, and I have had cheaper monitors, which I've blown, repaired, and blown them again. Now, it depends on what you're going to be doing with your monitors. I'm in a commercial situation, which means my equipment has to function all the time, every time. If you are a person in that situation, then you might not want to spend top dollar on your monitor. You want to get the best monitor sound for your room, but at the same time, I'll give you an example. Like I have a pair of Dynaudio BM5As right now. Both amps are blown. Both will cost me over $400 to get repaired. Both are expensive repairs because they're European monitors and I'm in America. You know, so you have the cost value in terms of currency taking place. So if you're relying on one pair of monitors to keep your business going, you're going to be kind of screwed if those monitors blow. And it's even more embarrassing if they blow in front of a client, you know? So high end, nowadays you have so many great companies like Cali Audio. Someone just hit me to another company today out in California. It depends on your budget, one, and it depends on, I would say, the warranty. You have to look at that. Because if you're going to be driving the heck out of these monitors like a crazy person, then you better know that if you blow a cone under normal situations, they're within a good warranty. So I'd say look at the warranty when you're about to purchase. Because like I have Dynaudio sitting on the shelf right now. Useless. You know what replaced the Dynes? These Mackies. I want to get close because the Dynes were paired with a Tannoy sub. So I had to find the perfect match, you know, and the best match were these little $119 Mackies. No, they're $150 each. So I paid $300. Okay, and when the Dynes blew, I was able to get these JBLs for next to nothing. So you know, you listen, like I said, monitors are like shoes, man. You better be prepared to get a couple of pair if you're going to be trying to entertain clients, because you don't want them things to go down. And if they go down and the client's sitting right there, then you're looking like Simple staring at them. Excuse me, I'm going to have to mix on one speaker. No, that don't fly over so good. I mean, you got somebody sitting there watching over your shoulder. So I would say mid-range, I would check out the Calis right now, which are the darlings of the industry. Those are good. Mackies, they make very, very good monitors. I mean, Mackies hold up, and that's because Greg Mackie is a guy who knows how to build stuff, you know. And the JBLs, the 308s, 305Ps, those are good. They're a little underpowered, you know, but because of the amplification that they use. But by and large, I mean, you can't go wrong, you know. So yeah, I would say check again, buy from someone that you could return them in 30 days. You know, Adams, the new Adams that they have out are supposed to be pretty good. You know, I don't like the way the ribbon tweeter sounds personally, but you might like them. So those are some good ones to look at. And if you're not looking to spend a whole lot of money. But high end, if you want to buy mid to high end, then I say look at the Dynes. And in your case, you said you're in Denmark. So that's even better. At least the Dynes, they're I think they're I forget. I know that they're in Europe. They're European companies. So, and they're distributed in America by TC Electronics. So I would say look into the nines if you want to spend good money on some decent mid to high end monitors. And Tim Likes Music made the comment, I always try to get the sound I want going in, the right mic, right pre and compression for the right instrument or voice saves time later and sounds better in his opinion. True. That's very true, Tim. And Michael Albert, don't you think when producers are trying to recreate or implement a sound like the 90s, it sounds cheesy because it's not new? Depends. That depends, Michael. It depends. Music ain't what, 12 tones? Ain't but 12 tones in chromatically on the in the musical system. So what you do with it, with those 12 tones is what makes the difference. I'm not saying go out there and try and recreate. Now that's corny. I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, because that's for a certain crowd. But I'm talking about from a technical standpoint. Why do you think that the 1073s are making a comeback? Because that was the sound back then, and now that it's been released off of patent and people get a hold of the schematic, they're recreating what was that sound that gave it so much girth and fatness, that NEVE sound. You can't beat it, so I'm not talking about actually going out and recreating the sound of 80s and 90s music. What I'm saying is that from a technical perspective and sonically, I don't think there was a better time period where the sonics of just sound of audio was near perfect. I remember the first time I was in the studio and I heard the Lexicon. This was the very first, the 224 XL. And I was playing drums for somebody, and yeah, and I heard my drums come through. You couldn't tell me nothing. I could do no wrong, man. That reverb made my drum sound awesome. So you just can't beat the sound, man. You can't. You got to get back to listening, and just like you have to appreciate the they say what is idiomatic to a particular genre of music, like in terms of gospel or in terms of jazz. The idioms of audio from the 90s is you have to reference that. You can't ignore it. You can't call yourself an engineer just because you went out and bought a Pro Tools system. You have to tune your ears, especially if you're looking for somebody to pay you. Perfect example. Someone came to me not too long ago. Now I'm not a cheap person. If you ask me to if you're hiring me as an arranger, I'm the type of guy that's going to notate everything, give you full charge for a band, and record it. And so, of course, with all of that work, there's an expense. They hired me one time. I did the work for them. And they figured, hey, well, I'll go out and get somebody else who could do it. Now, before I called the person. Before they left, they said to me, listen, I'm thinking about working with another producer on the next cut. And I just wanted to let you know. Okay, cool. I said, listen. They let me hear their work before. I was like, I said, if you buy cheap, you're going to buy twice. And I told her, I said, upon exit, if I got to fix anything that this person does, I'm going to charge you double. What happened? The person fell short. Now you got to come back to me to fix it for whatever reason. So, I'm losing my train of thought, but I'm saying that to say this. Listen, you get what you pay for in the end. I lost my train of thought. Forgive me. But, I think we were talking about, the sound of in the 90s. You just can't beat, someone or something that's not technically correct. You got to reference something, and you got to have a point of reference in order to go forward. And I think, the original point I was making was that just because a person puts a Pro Tools system in their environment does not make them an engineer. You're going to always kind of pay, if the person, listen, you buy cheap, you buy twice. I'm babbling. I know I'm saying a lot, but I mean, that's what it gets down to. It gets down to. My cousin Deborah just checked in. She says, good afternoon. Hey, cuz, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. And here's another question. Yeah, I was blabbing last. I was just blah, 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 blah. Yeah, man, sometimes I get off on these tangents, B. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, some of the stuff I've seen, I know I'm going on and on and on, but it's like, come on, man. Oh, yeah. Have clients to be like, they cry. Okay, well, you know it's going to cost you this by the hour. Okay. They cry. Okay, well, how come your rates keep going up? I got stuff to make. Con Ed's coming for the lights. You know, you got to write that check. They cry and then they wind up writing a check in the end. And then you give them your best. You give them your best. If you're going to charge top dollar, you going to, listen, you better be giving them the best. So I give you the whole enchilada when you hire me. You know what I mean? I notate everything. I record it, you know, and if you're a songwriter, I hire professional singers demo singers to do the stuff. So you get the whole thing, you know, and most people coming up nowadays, they assume because they have that system that makes them the pro. And no, that's not the case. You know, you got to be able to provide your client with the very, very best. And that's just my opinion on that. Dynaudios. Okay, let's go with why did the Dynaudios blown? Does it mean out of game station? No. With the Dynes, it was weird, man. I think they were just old, you know. And I mean, you know, I had them for a while, and like I said, you run these things for hours, man. Hours upon end. You know, you ain't just click them on 2 hours, click them off 2 hours later. I mean, sometimes you got an 8 hour, 9 hour, 10 hour days. You know, and then if you're mixing and sometimes you have 8 hour days, every day, you know, that's a lot. You're demanding a lot of your equipment. And I'm finding that just because you have these expensive monitors doesn't mean that expensive does not necessarily mean better. Like I said, these Mackies can stand up to them. You know, so once you pay $1,000 for a set of monitors, you thinking they gonna last you a long time? Like I said, it's like buying a pair of Jordans and going and playing basketball on concrete. They're going to wear out. You're going to wear them cones out. You're going to wear out the tweeters, all that, you know, bottom end that you running through the wire. Heat, you know, just kills components over time. Capacitors or batteries, they have to be able to retain a charge. If a capacitor can't retain its charge, they crap out on you. You know, so quite naturally, what you're going to be doing, you're going to be going and you have to probe and find out the reasons why they're not working. And you think they're going to charge you cheap for somebody Dynaudios to get them repaired? No, sir. You got another thing coming. Them things are expensive. So you either have a choice. You go out and buy a new pair or you get those repaired. And if you're running a commercial environment, time is money. Client ain't waiting around. Oh, I gotta reschedule the session because my monitors blew. What? You don't got a backup pair? You want me to pay you? Never mind. I'm going to Jack down the street. You just lost that gig. You know what I mean? So you got to have a backup pair. So I'm faced with this dilemma. What do? I had to go out. I thought initially that it was the fuse that blew. I'd replaced the fuse. It blew again. Then I'm finding out that they have problems with capacitance in the amplifiers in these things. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't have this problem when I was running an running a passive set of monitors. Never had it. And you want to know honestly what I mix on most of the time? Auratones mixed with that Tannoy. It's just perfect. Your mixes translate perfectly. Why? Because the Auratones are very mid-bandish. You know, you already know you got the top end, but you need to get the mids and the bottom end correctly. And the Auratones are great for that. You know, so, yeah, them Dynes crapped out on me, B. I'm going to tell you, man. And I was like stressing, you know, like, what? Called my man. He told me $400 to get repaired. I'm like, $400? And it was like right before Christmas. And I was like, ain't no way. In God's green earth, I'm going to spend $400 getting somebody. And just to be looked at? Nah, that's all right. I went out and bought the JBLs at that point. So let's keep them going. And Jonas says he's a a quiet mixing guy, so not gonna drive him hard, but I really get you. Okay, yeah, yeah. If you mix quietly, you know, you're gonna get a little bit more mileage out of them. But every now and then you have the client that comes over and wants to crank it up to 10, and you got to give them that. They paying you by the hour, so they turn it up to 10, and they want to sit here and let their ears bleed. Then you step away and let, you know, the chips fall where they may. And you know, you got to like I said, you got to make sure you got a backup pair, because if something craps out, you got to keep going, man. You ain't got no time to be. You may have downtime, but you got to be able to hit a monitor switch and say, okay, well, I can't mix on these right now. We have to continue on with those. So. And Mr. Pirate Brain says he has his Event 2020 BASs. Listen, those are great sounding monitors, man. They sound great. You know? Clip Wilson says he loves his JBLs. Yep. And Armando, what's up, brother? Says he picked up a pair of Tannoy Gold 8s. Now, I've never heard them, but Tannoys are no joke. That's another company that's been around a long time. And I think their far-field speakers, I forget who's, I'm not sure if it's Tony Maserati or it might be Tony Maserati that's still mixing on them. Those Tannoys were big, the concentric ones with the woofer and then the tweeter in the middle. Those are still happening, man. You know, and if you amp them right with enough powerful amplifier, you're going to get a nice sound out of those. Always like those Tannoys, and they're still holding their value, still to this very day. So, Sean Appleton, what's up, brother? Says greetings from Sacramento. How do you use multi-band compression, and what do you put it on? Now, that is more of a mastering engineer's question, but I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. With dance music, sometimes it's necessary and this is how you would technically use a multi-band compressor. Sometimes it's necessary to attain certain frequencies in the track. Best practices say, go back to the mix engineer, tell him to fix it. Try to not rely on fixing it later, because maybe if the bass, let's just take a kick drum in dance music where you have that pulse. If that's constant, if you're looking at your meters and you constantly boom, boom, boom on every beat, the meters are peaking, then you need to tame the kick drum a little bit better so that it's not dominating the two bus. Or the two buses response, if you know what I mean. Now, sometimes, you know, if you have those slight peaks with a kick drum, that's fine. But once you get it into the mastering situation, maybe you want to tame just that little section just a little bit more. That's where a multi-band compressor comes in at. You could slide the frequency range to control certain areas without affecting the others. Because you don't want every time the compressor responds in a particular way to bring everything down. That's vocals, instruments as well. You just maybe just want to contain one little area of the frequency spectrum. Kick drum. You know, you don't want it to also dominate the mids. You know, because that can present a problem for you. You know, if it starts, if the compressor above all things, if it starts to cause a gain reduction in the mids, you know, then, you know, guitars, vocals, a lot of information is in the mid frequencies. So you need to make sure that that's tamed. Again, best practices say pay attention to it while mixing, but, you know, use the multi-band compressor as not a quick fix, but something that you're going to just, you know, glaze on the top just to get things to sit a little bit better. I hope that answers your question. Boom. Let's go. I get a DBX DDP with tape and candle with that. Oh, Kupi says he got a DDP. You have to tell me what that is with a tape emulation. Can't live without it. it's funny thing. You'd be surprised at the amount of people that are using old tape machines, and running signal through it just to get the sonics from the machine, the electronic sound of the machine into the track. And that's, again, in part of imparting your own signature on the music, if you will. Anything from a creative perspective like that, I think is great. Avalon Major checking in from Hot Phoenix, AZ. Have you ever come across the Focusrite 2802? My thought and my opinions. I have. I think the 2802 is a great unit. It is extremely expensive. I do like it. And I regret that they stopped making it, because I thought it was a very flexible unit to purchase. But I do understand that, sometimes in the business of manufacturing, you could cannibalize, business from other sections of your business. To give you an example of what cannibalization in business is, let's just say you have a Home Depot on block number 1, and then 3 blocks away, you have Home Depot again. Based on population, maybe people in the other Home Depot visit one over the other, but you still have expenses at both locations. So quite naturally, business is going to be taken from one aspect to the other, and the same thing happens from the perspective of Focusrite. I think when they first introduced the 2802, I think they were transitioning out of their relationship with Digi, if you will, and Digi Design at the time, and Avid and was getting into the mix, and then Avid was adopting the Yukon protocol, and I guess they figured, what are we going to do with this? To me, it was an iconic piece. I think you had the preamps in it. It was a dog controller, and I really wish somebody would make something like that again. It was integrated well with Pro Tools. I know there's several manufacturers out that are doing different iterations of desktop controllers, but to me, that was one of the best, man. I think with the preamps, you had EQ. It was a killer machine, man. It's highly expensive, and I think even in the used market, it's still very expensive. But I really liked it, Trusty Studio said, "Get a pair of PA speakers." Problems. Yeah, I'm serious, man. For some situations, that's like probably the best. Now, who is calling me? I don't know who this is. Somebody had the nerve to leave a voicemail. Folks, they don't know that the brother's on live stream. Anyway, good thing I had it on the side. But yeah, man, the PA speakers, I had a friend of mine. I ain't gonna call his name, but yeah, award-winning artist, right? He said to me one day, he said he put an 18-inch this is funny. He got a beautiful studio and everything. He put an 18-inch Mackie subwoofer with his monitors to see what the effect of. I was like, man, you about to earthquake the situation. 18-inch subwoofer, matching PA speaker with studio monitors. Like, do you really think that's gonna work? But I found that hilarious when he told me he did it. I never followed up with him to find out, hey, what was your experience with that? But I can only imagine 18-inch subwoofers. That's crazy. Now that's a lot of energy, man. Way too much for a project studio control room. But yeah, but with the PA speaker situation, man, sometimes you gotta make it do. You gotta make it do. Mr. Pirate Brain says, I use the Finalizer Plus rack. It has a multi-band compressor. Yeah. And he says underrated. Yes, it is. It's a good unit. It's a good unit. I think it, with the Finalizer, and I found this when I had an Avalon 747. Sometimes you could, if you're not, light-handed, you could be a little too heavy-handed with it. And I found that to be the case. That's why I got rid of the Avalon, is because your ears want to hear the effect, and sometimes you don't need to hear the effect of the unit. You just need to treat what you're running through it with a light touch. And with the 747 and even with that finalizer, you can have almost a love-hate relationship with it, because if you get too heavy-handed, it's gonna be, I really don't like the way this sounds right now, and then you wind up getting turned off by it quick because you thought it was a magic bullet. At least that's what I thought when I dropped that $3,000 on that Avalon that time. I was like, oh, this is gonna fix everything. It's gonna make it sound stellar. And I didn't spend time with it enough to know its character. And I got very, very, it sat in the rack for years, man. I'm like, why am I just sitting on $3,000? It's not being used, and I realized it was because I didn't take time to really, being young and dumb and having money and just taking it and just, plopping down, oh yeah, and this is going to be the end all be all. And it was not. It was not. And like I was saying a couple of streams ago, sometimes, like I said, a lot of youngsters, they're plug-in junkies. And some plugins are good. I'm not going to say they're not. But, you get strung out on plugins. And then when I bought my $15,000, invested in this Pro Tool system, yeah, they got salesmen. You must buy all the plugins. I got the whole kit and caboodle, man, like 1,001 plugins. And every time I'm turning around, you working, you want to work quick. What are you reaching for? I'm reaching for the DigiDesign plugins all the time. I'm just a waste of money, a waste of Focusrite, Massenburg Design Works, and all these expensive plugins I got. And every single solitary time I'm reaching for something, I'm reaching for the Digi ones because they work. It's Hey man, that's a whole other topic for a whole other day, man. Yeah, he said he was heavy-handed at first, but yeah, once you get used to using, see, that's the key. Learning the capabilities of the equipment you have. It's just like a band, right? Anytime you put a group of musicians together, you're going to play within the confines of everyone's capability. Like Chick Corea said one time that when he wrote a part for a particular instrument, he has a particular player in mind because, he knows the character of the person. And it's the same thing with equipment. You got to know the character of and the capability of what it is that you're using. What is the character of this microphone? Is it going to give me what I'm looking for in this respect? Because maybe the answer is yes, and maybe it's no. And if you're impatient, like I was with the Avalon, it was like, oh, and then it's like, it fell flat, sat in the rack for years, and I had to sell it. So yeah, you can't be too heavy-handed. You must learn your equipment. Trustee Studio said, after some time, what do you think of Lunar? I don't think it's ready for a live session to me. I don't know. See, just like with everything else, your equipment serves a purpose. I don't. Some people do. Some folks, they jump on the latest and greatest thing, but you have got to understand that if you're doing client work, you can't be switching stuff up, man. Midway, man. No. Like I said, it's not fair to the client. First of all, they cutting you a check, B, at the end. And if your stuff is all substandard because you try some new technology on them, you got to take that hit. Because they're going to be like, give me my money back. And you can't argue with them because you tried, something brand new when you should experiment on your stuff. Experiment on your time, not client time. There's a reason why Avid is the industry standard. Stick with the standard. That's your safe zone. If you want to experiment with Luna on your projects, the little pet projects that you may be doing. But I think it's a good idea. But you have to ask yourself the question: does the world really need another DAW? No, no. But you're gonna get a few that's gonna be become ambassadors for Luna, and I'm not saying it's bad to be an ambassador for something new. What I'm saying is that if you're a working individual, I mean, and if you are a professional who's working and who, you have a requirement that's coming from a client, you can't, experiment on client work. You shouldn't. Things have got to stand the test of time and the test of stability in a working environment before you offer it over to someone else. And if you can vouch for the fact that this thing works efficiently, then you go and start cutting live sessions on it. But it looks good, but I think it has to go through, some iterations before one can say, oh yeah, it's the end all be all. I would say that would be the safe thing to do. But I think it's a great idea. I don't think I would have, if I were part of the research and development team, I don't think I would have rolled it out so soon. I wouldn't have rolled it out so soon. I would have waited till after this whole coronavirus thing blew over. But I think maybe they were gambling with the fact that, oh, well, everyone's indoors, so let's do it now. Yeah, but who are you trying it out on? Ain't nobody to record. Ain't nobody coming to nobody's studio tomorrow. So I mean, I think it's a good idea, but it's going to have to go through the process like every other new product. So that's my opinion on it. I can't afford the real APRX, so I got the Waves API pack, and it just meant no. If you can, I would suggest that everyone. And nowadays, it's cheap to get in at the ground floor with the 500 series. I'll never forget this situation. This is what convinced me that that shorter form consoles are probably the best way to record. I know a lot of people that used to record this way. They used to go mic into a preamp, out of the preamp. If they ran through any compression, anything directly. I mean, not through a patch bay. Direct connections right into the tape machine. I used to be like, why are you doing it that way? They was like, man, there's no cleaner path. There's not going to be a cleaner signal. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend of mine who worked at this studio, Calliope, and they were working on a cut for a very well respected Warner Brothers artist at the time, and invited me down to listen to the tracks they just mixed. And that was my first introduction to the what's the name of that console? It's a very short form console. Literally, the desk couldn't be any greater than what was the name of the company? I'll find out the name. I'll put it in the community. But my point being, this was the console's channel strip. Preamp, EQ section, like about 4 auxes, and fader. Okay? And it was the most punchiest console I ever heard. The most punchiest console I ever heard. Now, it wasn't one of the more respected brands. It'll come back to me. But the studio was Calliope, and they had another one at another studio that when my another friend of mine was working on some material with a very well respected producer here in New York, Rob Robinson, very very talented keyboardist. And the name of the studio was Monkey Hill. It was in Queens. And it was the second time I heard that console. And it was like, man, this is the punchiest console. And as I said to a friend of mine, I saw one used on eBay. And I told him, I said, if I had somewhere to store it, to restore it like for storage and to take time to restore it, I would definitely buy this console. It'll come back to me, the name of it. But yeah, man, it was one of the most punchiest consoles I ever heard. So I'm saying that to say this. To get the cleanest, punchiest sound out of any microphone, you have to shorten the path. you know, and what's being afforded to most people nowadays through companies like API and Midas, who are offering these iterations of 500 series chassis, is now giving you the chance to get in at the ground floor. And there's some great companies making great products like Fredenstein. The artistic series mic pre's are great sounding preamps. Warm Audio, in their 500 series. Heritage has great 500 series. I mean, so to get in, what used to be like god awful expensive to get into in some time ago is now very, very affordable. Very affordable for you to get in at the ground floor with the 500 series. So I advocate, man, if you can. I mean, the plugins sound great, don't get me wrong, but there's really no substitute. And you'll hear it. You'll hear it, man. I just don't know any other way to tell you that once you plug a mic into a solid preamp and you have a good short path, you'll hear it. You're going to be like, oh, this is what you were talking about. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So there's nothing like a short path between mic pre, to the medium that you're recording to, But, yeah. I heard Kenny Larkin is mixing through his API console. Now, who is Kenny Larkin? You have to let me know who that person is because I'm not familiar with them. Yeah, but the API sound is very, very punchy, very mid-forward, and great for certain genres of music. Maybe not all, but for certain genres, yeah, man. I mean, if you want that mid-forward sound, a lot of the 80s Earth, Wind, and Fire records were recorded at Cherokee. And I think they had a API console. Anybody want to chime in and correct me? But it has a sound, very mid-forward, and it was great, for that point in that era of music, But that's that. And more questions. Ask me anything. I will try to answer them or it. Any other questions? Business, compressors, mic pre's, because I will get off on another tangent. I'm still trying to think of that console name. Chicago techno producer DJ Quick has a small. Yeah, you know what? I was, like I'm saying, here's a couple. We're following up on that 500 series situation. Chicago, I think is Mr. Pirate Brain. You have the Kenny Lockett. I'm not sure if he's the same brother who's using the box to mix some stuff through. I did see someone who is a well-respected DJ and Chicago producer that's using the box, which is an impressive piece of kit as well. I really like the way that thing sounds, man. And my problem with 500 series stuff is recalling my settings. Trusty Studio. Let me show you how you fix that. Gaff tape. Stick it. You see it? See it? You're gonna have that when you're dealing with analog stuff anyway. So you gotta, if you know you have a particular sound, you gaff tape it. Back in the day, if you were engineering, because you had two different types of engineer, you had a tracking engineer, you had a mix engineer. If you was a tracking engineer, the mix engineer will tell you could never provide too many notes. So if you ever seen a track sheets would be marked up like crazy, man. This happened, but that, and the occasional coffee stain or food stain on the track sheet as well. But yeah, man, you gotta get that gaff tape B and just make a note as. Or nowadays you could just take your iPhone and take a picture. If you know that this was happening during this session, take a picture on the iPhone, man. But yeah. But Avalon Major says DJ Quick has a small API console at home that I saw him using. Yeah, the APIs, man, they're configurable. Nowadays they sound really great for certain types of music. But with the box that they have out, that API, the box series consoles, what you can do, I think the box 2 has a bay of just empty 500 series slots. So you could put together a hybrid situation, man. Imagine sticking like 10 NEVE pre's in that thing. Or if you want to use just the EQs, NEVE EQs, you could, Frankenstein together anything with the 500 series. That's the best thing. It's totally configurable. And nowadays even with the lunch boxes, you have where you can daisy chain channels together, so you could, whatever your mind can conceive sound wise, from a mind perspective, you can achieve through the chassis. So that's the one good thing about having that level of modularity afforded to you through the 500 series. Clip Wilson says he think he's going to purchase the Lewitt 540C. Now I think that's the it was one that you have to tell me which one that is, and we'll have a better discussion about the 540. But I'm not certain which. I think that's the one that has the tube in it. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. Thoughts on investing in higher end multi-channel AD converters like Auroras or Mytex as opposed to the new lower end interfaces? Listen, man, I'm an advocate of you got to go. I always use the basketball analogy. You want Michael Jordan taking the last shot of the game because he's Michael Jordan. And just like Mytex and Auroras, you can't beat companies who've been doing it, man, and who know how to get the job done. So you're going to pay premium, but the sound coming out of them things is going to be stellar. Think about it. The quality of conversion coming out of a preamp, out of an interface. It's not the same. It's not the same. When you get a chance, do yourselves a favor, and this is for everyone. Look up clocking technology. You see, when you get into the inside of understanding what goes into this equipment, all the other stuff becomes less relevant. The brands, the this, the that. What's inside? That's why the Alesis 3630 was such a successful compressor. Why? They bought the chips from DBX. DBX was the bellwether for compression technology, for VCA voltage control amplifiers, going into compressors in the 70s, 80s, and a good portion of the 90s. Another analogy is the reason why GoPro is so successful, because they buy their sensors from Sony. And if you know anything about Sony cameras, they're great in low light. They're very sharp sensors. So quite naturally, that's why GoPro is so successful. So if you're going with a Mytech or an Aurora, a Lynx, you got to know the history of the company. These companies been around for light years. The Lynx systems were what we used to synchronize two 24-track machines. You use the Lynx system. So these people have been around for the longest. And Aurora and Mytech, they've been bellwethers in the industry. So if you invest in it, that's a good investment, man. You ain't gonna lose that money. That's, like I said, rainy day money. You hit hard times, you did, okay, well, I guess I got to sell that Mytech. You're going to get some cash back for that thing. So, you can't go wrong. Okay. Trusty, hi, have you used output software stuff? Explain to me what you mean by output software. Are you talking about I forget the name of like a 2-track software, or explain to me what you mean by that. And Miss Pyrobrand, do I like Midas preamps? Never used them, but I know that they do. I have on occasion worked on a Midas console in a live situation, and Midas is one of the better companies to make preamps. So you can't go wrong if that's what you're investing in. Avalon Major says he's asking about the Mitex and the Auroras because I still have the Rosetta. Case in point. You want Michael taking that shot, man. This thing ain't going nowhere. It's good. It works. It's solid. That's what you want. It hasn't crapped out on me. You put it on the bench for a little while, and then you wind up resurrecting it because you have to ask yourself, what can get the job done? If it can get the job done, it can get the job done. And for what it's worth, it gets the job done. So you can't go wrong, man. You can't go wrong. James, my brother, do you have an audio cable system? I have 4 large bins. You have to explain to me when you say audio cable system. And Cool Breeze says he loves his 3630. Yes, it still works, man. And Chaz checked in. What's up, brother? He says, how are things? Things are going well, my brother. And was wondering if I use VST plugins at all. No. I have a good friend of mine. I don't know if he's on today. Jerry Hutchinson, who is a great producer. I worked with Jerry a lot in the 90s and early 2000s. And he swears by VST plugins. For the most part, that's for people who are on a certain platform. And I've been with DigiDesign's Pro Tools since version 3. I'm really dating myself right now. But yeah, so VSTs were not something that was staple to me functioning, So, but Jerry, he loves them. And VST plugins have come a long way. And they appear to be quite solid nowadays. So I don't think you could go wrong using VST plugins. Output is a company that makes VST expansion for contact, and they have... Really? Okay. All right. I was wondering how good Arcade is, but I need Native Instruments complete before the complete 12. Chaz, my brother, you seem like you jonesing for some plugins, man. Y'all know my opinion on some plugins. Hey, let me show you something. Okay? This is why you shouldn't buy plugins. Version 7. Okay? Look at this. Come on, man. You spend $1 gazillion for something like this, and guess where it winds up sitting? On the shelf. You know what I mean? So, it's like, I don't know. Everybody's mileage may vary, man. But I got out of the habit of making these companies rich, man. Really. You gotta know how much money you spend and when you run in a everybody's different. I'm not, saying that one should not go out and buy, but when you doing this and you this is your livelihood, man, as much as you may want to spend, I think this came from a friend of mine at the time, $1,300 for the native complete, $1,000 for software. You got to be able to make that money back. Or other than that, it's just like a fun hobby that you just threw $1,000 at. So who got money to keep throwing away? That's why I have not upgraded on my HD system. Doesn't make sense. I'm giving Digi 15. I gave them 15,000. And I was working a lot and had a lot of stuff lined up. When you're working, it pays for itself. But let that curve start to go on the downside, all right? You just let that start to happen, and you got that $15,000 tab, and I'm gonna transition into something else for you youngsters that want to do stupid stuff like this. I got a story for you. You got a $15,000 system, right? And here's some of the dumb things that people do. Now, I had friends of mine that would lease. Oh, I'm going to pay the lease payment on it. The lease payment on it. And then the lease has a balloon payment at the end. When you are clocking dollars, you can do that. Now, let's transition into another story. I was talking to one of the young assistants that come through here on occasion. And he said to me, oh, yeah, talking about another engineer friend of his. Yeah, so I'm going to go and borrow something that was very expensive. I was like, really? It's like, wow, how do you afford that? He took credit. He got a credit card. Oh, yeah, they gave him $10,000 worth of credit to buy audio equipment. I nearly had a aneurysm when he said that. How much of the 10 did he use? All $10,000. Mind you, this is somebody. This is not your livelihood. Why would you take out a $10,000? I love the high pitched voice on the announcer. Yeah, man. Yo, B, I'm gonna tell you, man. Yeah, I see some stuff, B. I ain't gonna lie to you. But the $10,000 thing, I'm like, dude got 10 grand worth of equipment, plugins, Pro Tools system, interface. Can y'all not do stupid stuff like that? Do you realize that if you take $10,000 worth of credit, you better be having a gig that's going to pay that off? Now, that's how I function, which gets back to my original point. Someone asked me, why did I stall my upgrade? Because these are uncertain times. I still have to, listen, the water company ain't here and I ain't gotten it. My family got to eat. They, all them other things that I had planned have to be put on hold. So for you youngsters that are going to Sweetwater and getting these credit cards, please stop doing that. Because A, you ain't doing nothing but jacking up your credit because half of y'all can't pay the note every month. And B, the technology just keeps changing. Stop. Stop doing that. You're hurting yourself. I own every stick of equipment. And listen, it took a lot of convincing my wife to know. And when I was about to drop that 15 grand, I was like, hon, but listen, I'm in the middle of 3 projects right now. One of the projects is paying for it. Okay? And the 2 other ones will fill in the space. So you take a gamble and sometimes things pay off. So to keep putting that money out there like that is, to me, foolish. It's foolish. And that's what young people, you got to stop getting these credit cards, man. Don't. If you got somebody who's going to put some cash in your pocket, or if there's a requirement from a professional perspective, that's different. But you got to make sure that when you're making that investment, thousands of dollars is going to pay for itself some kind of way, man. Some kind of way. Or you just taking good money and tossing it right after bat. I mean, that's just how I look at it. But in the stuff that I hear young folks do, I'm gonna tell you one other story. Another young engineer that came through. Hey, yeah, man, where you been? Hey, I was on the West Coast, man. I got hired to do this dance track for this singer. Good for you. That's great. He said, yeah, it was like one of the largest paying gigs I ever got. That's even better. Yeah. I was like, but how much you got paid? $15,000 to do 2 tracks. I was like, God bless you, my brother. So I was like, you. The stuff young people do, it's like, huh? So he got $15,000 to do this track, 2 tracks. How did you get paid? How did you invoice the client? Through PayPal. I was like, PayPal? I said, PayPal is your bookkeeping software. Okay. All right. Okay. I guess this is a brand new day. That's how people do stuff. I still use QuickBooks, but hey, no problem. So at the end of the year, I said, you did take taxes out, right? Nah. I was like, wait a minute. You did not pay tax on that money? I said, you didn't know you had to pay tax on that money, right? You know, kids, you know how the kids do. They give you that deer in the headlight look. I'm like, okay, I said, this is what you should do. This is how you got to fix this. I was like, you know you need to file an amended return because your tax return was falsified. You got $15,000 in cash. And then, you know how kids, you know, if those of us who have kids, you know, you tell your kids stuff that's like, oh, snap, they give you this. I'm like, file an amended return. So I gave him the number to my accountant. I was like, listen, call him up. You can file the return. I said, I hope you got some money tucked away, B, because I said, that's going to alter your tax return. It's crazy. But young people, ain't nobody, do you realize that paper trails happen when you deal with PayPal? Now, if the person paid you with a bag of cash, I don't advocate that. So for those of you who want to go and say, well, Warren said, go get your money in cash. I mean, that's some of the stuff I seen happen with some of these hip hop. They walk with a bag of $10,000 and I know where that money came from. It came from the street. There's a bag of how many? 100, 20s? That's drug money. No, I'm not saying take $10,000 in cash. So don't go accusing me of saying that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. You cannot get $10,000, $15,000 worth of money and don't think that PayPal ain't doing their due diligence in terms of compliance. You have to report that. PayPal is gonna do there's a term that they use in accounting, but you have to go. They file papers to the government, and the government comes back and like, oh, okay, well, what was the tax ID of the person? And here you gonna go and get $10,000, $15,000 in cash on a gig and not report it. It's called tax evasion, young people. That kind of stuff will land you in jail. Okay? Ask people like Wesley Snipes. Okay, so this is why Ray said the same thing. You're Wesley Snipes. I'm telling you, you don't be playing that. Uncle Sam ain't gonna be hearing about nothing about, oh, I forgot, I ain't know. Ignorance is no excuse for the law, as they say. So for those of y'all playing with PayPal, you better stop. Because I'm telling you, PayPal is filing them compliance reports yearly. And every time your client giving you cash, trust me, the government knows. So you thinking you getting away when you pull all that money into your bank and then the bank is doing the same thing. Don't be silly. Stop getting credit cards and stop getting paid in cash unless it's somebody walk up with you with a bag of money. But I've seen that situation and I know where that money comes from. It's drug money. So don't do it. Pay your taxes. I got a little tale about that on one of my videos as well. Yeah, but don't do stupid stuff like get credit cards and definitely invoice your clients with a legit invoice so that you can create your own paper trail. You know, that's just being stupid. If you don't do that, then you just burning yourself. Because I'm telling you, you could run from the government, but you doggone sure can't hide. They got the temperature of your behind in that seat. They know it. They know it. Trust me on that one. And from someone who has been audited before, you know, and it's not a pleasant experience. That's why you got to make sure you got your situation in order. Don't be playing that. I'm telling you, they know when you got that cash. They know. There's one of the rappers, I forgot his name, not Beanie Siegel. Oh, I think it might have been Beanie Siegel. They asked him like, yo, I heard you off the radar, man. It's like, yeah, man, I'm still gigging. He like, I'm still gigging. Yeah, I get all my money in cash. Like, why? I owe the government $1 million+ in tax revenue. Oh, God. That's getting interest. For every minute that you wait to resolve that money is collecting interest. So you may thinking that, because you're getting this underground money, you're getting away. No, then you're not. Don't be stupid. I'm telling you, because Uncle Sam don't be playing that. He gonna get that money. He gonna get you. Next thing you know, you driving the Lamborghini and then they roll up on you and they season your stuff. The marshals with them guns, them big old guns. Don't play with the government. Pay your taxes, young people. Stop getting your stuff through PayPal and all these other fly-by-night companies, all right? So be smart. All right. Now, back to some questions. I get off on these tangents, B. I'm telling you, I seen some weird stuff with some of these people, man. And it's even weirder when you're dealing with folks in hip-hop. Trust me. Even weirder. And my exposure to them is by virtue of other individuals I know in the business. But hey, man, stop. Like I said, somebody run up to you with a bag of money talking about, yo, make that beat for me. If he running up to you with a bag of money, that money is coming off the street. So don't be stupid and be taking bags of money and getting credit cards limit. Clip Wilson says, I have a $5,000 credit limit and I at least spend about $300, $400 at a time or something that I know pay off. Yeah, I mean, you got to do it like that. Like for instance, if the what was his name earlier that said he wanted to get a pair of midline monitors. Where is he? Jonas. Excuse me, said he wants to get a pair of midline monitors, and you buy them and then suddenly they go out and you have the credit limit. Yeah, then you got to keep working on a project. Then you go out and you spend $300 like that. You have to be smart. You don't be, man, you don't know, man. You speak to some of these people in the business, they just don't do taxes and they don't pay. I'm telling you, time is longer than twine, as they say. Stuff do be catching up to you. So don't be foolish playing with credit and playing with the government with their tax money. Jess says, Warren, I just want to say thank you for your insight and knowledge. I have been a subscriber of yours for a few years, and you are one of my go-tos. Much love. Hey, man, thank you for saying that, my brother. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I'm just trying to share what I know, and if it's been beneficial to you, then my mission was accomplished. The older you get, the more you realize that this life that you live is not about you as much as it is about other people. And I don't know how old you are, but when you get up in age, and you'll realize that it's your responsibility to with the life that you have lived, to pay it forward with wisdom that's going to help someone. So if what I've been saying has been a help to you, then my mission is accomplished, man. And I do appreciate you for saying that. So thanks for tuning in also. Trovel, I get my gear straight. Retrovel said he gets his gear straight up. Yo, I don't know what that mean, B. That might mean you be getting it off the back of a truck or something like that from Vito and the boys. I don't know, man. You gotta have to explain that one to me, my brother. Cash is always better in my studio. See, the thing about cash is this, especially with big projects. When you're doing any type of if I'm doing any type of large scale project where I know I'm getting thousands of dollars, I bill in thirds. To start, work in progress, completion. So this way, you're not doing too much and getting too little in return, because I've seen situations where people, they get caught up. Somebody says, oh, well, and if you've realized that I got $1,000 for this project, and then you wind up saying, oh, I need the money. I take the money, then you wind up doing $2,000 worth of work. Then by the time, things wear on, you feel like, this is a drag, man, because I'm giving up more than I'm getting. So cash may be good in some respects, but I think it is better to deal with billing in thirds. Now, if your thirds is coming in cash, that's one thing. And I say billing in thirds, I mean from a contractual standpoint. When you sign into contract with me, I need to deposit. That's for me to get started. A work in progress that you're going to stop in and approve. You have to tell me yes, no, change this, change that. Once you approve the work in progress and I continue on to completion, I don't turn over any deliverables until I get that check. So this way there's no discrepancy. They know what they're required to do. You know what you're going to get from them in the end. I mean, that's just wisdom. Cash may be good, but don't get caught up with it, because someone may wave $1,000 in front of your face and then you wind up doing $2,000 worth of work. You'd be like, I keep having to give revisions because they already gave me that money. You may be feeling like, hey, I don't feel like turning on my lights. My lights go on for, they cost money for the lights to go on, in other words. And You keep asking me to revise the mix, revise the mix, revise the mix. But their comeback is going to be, yeah, well, I gave you that money. And you can't argue with that. You can't argue with that. You lowballed yourself. You know, so wisdom says that what you should do is just get your money in thirds. I mean, there's so many horror stories you hear of people when they dealing with cash and dealing with oh, I need the gig because of the money, you know, and sometimes that's warranted, but at other times it could be a blessing and a curse. Getting that money can be a blessing and a curse because you feel like, you know, this is the worst situation I've been in, and I keep having to do these revisions for this client, and I'm not getting the money on the back end. You know, time is money, folks. So yeah, try and be a little smart in terms of how you bill your clients if you can. Chad says he's gonna go the hardware route from now on. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that, man. You can't go wrong with that. Let's take a new question. Is the Slate preamp cool? I'm looking for something nice. I don't know. I have never used Slate products. I hear a lot of talk about the company. I know when I saw them they have a nice presentation when you go to the AES, but it goes down to what's going to work for you. You know, everyone's mileage may vary. You know, what may work for you may not necessarily work for someone else. Now, with regards to the Slate, I do know people that have purchased a whole mixing setup that they have and have been turned off by it. You know, so you got to be very, very careful. And if, like I said, when you buy from a person you know that you don't like it, hey man, this thing is going back. You know. So Jay Perez, music official, says, will an outboard compressor like the Clark Technic KT2A or Distressor make vocal recordings better, or a compressor isn't needed? It depends. A compressor is needed in most situations when you're dealing with vocalists. Why? Some people got jacked up mic technique. That's why my list of demo singers is short. You know, I mean, once you sat under, you look up these four people that I've worked with. Ayanna George, phenomenal vocalist. April Peters, her stuff is on iTunes. Another one that I have worked with extensively a lot. April was my go-to girl for demo vocals. Liseli Luogo, she's another phenomenal vocalist. God, the list goes on, but they have such great control, man. Great control. So I mean, you don't have to worry about when you put a mic up in front of them. Okay, are they gonna be able to deliver? Like, I'll put to you this way. I remember one time being on a gig, and we were doing support music for Vanessa Bell Armstrong at the time. It was like a casual situation, but when I watched Vanessa Bell sing, it was like, oh my God, it's effortless. It was effortless, man. And that's what, you know, a person with good mic technique will always make it effortless and makes your job easier, so that you don't have to use compression and all these other things that just to get the good sound out of them. Now, juxtapose that with someone who has terrible mic technique, terrible control over dynamics. If you start like certain compressors like the Distressor may impart an artifact on that vocal that you may not like because of the aggressive nature of the compressor. You know what I mean? So in your case, what you should do, I would try and have, and again, I think this is starting to spawn the need for me to go through the individual types of compressors. You need effect compressor for the flexibility of being able to dial in the ratio, and you need a VCA for certain types of music because of the character it imparts, and you need an optical because of the ability to allow certain transients to get through on certain types of music and yet still impart a good compression signature to the sound. I'm saying a lot. It's a whole lot of technical bibble babble that I just shared with you, but the Clark Technic K22A, which I had as a demo unit for a review, I wound up keeping because I was that impressed with it. The 1176 by Clark Technic can't be too far off. So you figure for the price of one distressor, you got both. You have a FET and you have an optical. So if the optical is not working on the vocalist, then you can reach for the FET. There are certain times when you're going to need certain types of equipment for certain people. Now, if you have an Ayana or an April or a Lizelli or one of these types of vocalists who you could put up a mic and they can sing, you know, and a Fela James, Fela's the pure soprano, you know, these are all people that sing with some top folk, man. You don't have to worry. You're going to be more entertained. And the list, that's a short list. That's a short list of those great vocalists. My wife said Annette Bland. And then Annette Bland or Dolores Bowman. These are great. Melanie Daniels. The list goes on and on and on and on. You got to be in an environment where you see what a pro does. Like, I was watching Carl Allen the other day play drums, right? And he was doing a bossa nova and singing, and it was just such the sweetest thing because it was effortless. A pro will always make something seem effortless. It's not contrived where he's like pulling teeth just to get something out of them. You know, it's effortless. It's beautiful. You know, it's going to make your job easier because they do have good mic technique. They know when they're singing a loud passage to back off the mic. When they're singing something softer dynamically, they know that they have to lean into the microphone a bit. You know, that's where, you know, what separates the pros from those who are not. The ability to nuance things to make your job as an engineer that much easier. So in your case, I would suggest, you know, to get an optical and a FET. An optical is the KT2A and the FET would be the 1176 version by Clark Technic. And then, you know, you could dial in the compression ratio on the 1176 version of it a lot better or a lot closer because this is fixed. The ratio on that is fixed, I think, at 10:1. The attack time is fixed at 10 milliseconds. You know, so you can adjust. One is more adjustable than the other. So, you know, I would get both if you can afford to buy both. And they're not expensive units on top of it. Chaz, and yeah, those days ain't coming in. Cash Digital made me use the Chaz said you bought some coffee on the man. You better walk with some cash in your pocket, brother. Mr. Pirate Brain says he appreciates what I do. I appreciate you, brother, for tuning in. This is therapy for me too. You know, helps me. It really tells me two things. A, how old I am, one, and how much I've experienced because, you know, you want to know. It's like, you start recalling circumstances and situations that happened so long ago, you know. So it's really good for me to do this, and it's good. I'm glad that you're participating at the same time. So let's move on. Let's see. I never bought hot gear because of you know, like about that energy in the studio. True. Oh, Trusty Studio asks the question: how many monitors, screens do I have running? In an ideal situation, it's best to run 2 when you're using Pro Tools. So this way you can make adjustments to mix and edit screen, especially if you have to move fast. Right now I'm just having 1 because I don't have the space, man. In most other situations it was 2 monitors, and sometimes I think at one point I had 3 because I had a a composition station and arranging, which had Sibelius. That was one system, and then I had Pro Tools on the other, which was 2 monitors. So I had 3 monitors once upon a time. Yeah, you on point. I'm in DC and these youngins out here get wild. Yeah, I guess they do, man. Max Devius, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Just checked in. And he said, I use the Apollo Twin IO as an insert. Is that okay? Nah, listen, I said a long time ago, and I will say it again for this live stream. If I was starting out, at the top of my list would be to get the UA system. I love what they're doing right now. You know, it's a great place to start, but again, I still want you to reach back and to understand from a retro perspective what sounded like coming off of a tape machine. So I appreciate what Apollo is doing and with the plugins as well as the system on the whole, but from an educational and sonic perspective, to tune your ear to what it sounds like, I would listen to some stuff from back in the day so that you could get a good sense of where they're going, where they are, where they're going, where you would like to be sonically. You know, I hope that makes sense. If not, then we could have an additional conversation. Just hit me up on email and I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. Because I say the same thing often enough because there's something missing when you're listening to things from an all digital perspective, you know. So you know, that's just my take on it. Let's move on. Let's talk balance of studio versus family life. Man, sometimes I get caught up. Yeah, you got to know what's most important if you're talking about the balance of studio and life. And my family is always first, period. Point blank, full stop. Nothing comes above that, man. Nothing comes above that. You know, and you know, friends are important, but friends come and they go, but your family is forever, man. So, you know, you're gonna have a job, you're gonna have things that you have to do, but the most important thing is family. I don't know anything else to say. I mean, if you can't rely on your family, and you can't rely on anything else in life, you know. So it gets back to family first. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Ain't a perfect family in the world. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, it's always about family first. And you got to know when it's too much, because sometimes it's too much. I have friends of mine right now that are professional musicians that are, man, I can only imagine the mental struggles. These are people that had, you know, weekly gigs, you know, whether they were on the road or not. Now they're stuck at home. And that was their life. That's all they did. So think about that. If that's your world, if that's all that you do, and that's your only perspective on life, you're in a bad place right now, B. So you got to balance it. You got to balance it, man. You got to know what's most important at the moment. You have to prioritize, because everything is not important. Just like I think we were talking earlier about the upgrade. As much as I wanted to move forward, I had a couple of nice size projects planned that now are gone totally. Did my studio change over to from you know, in the box to out the box on pause indefinitely. Sometimes stuff just comes at you, B. You know, and you got to be, you know, I won't say flexible, but you got to keep things in perspective. You got to, it ain't nothing above your family, period. You know, I'm gonna step off the soapbox in a minute, but I mean, that's just my take on it. You know, your friends will come. I mean, and if you're in the business of music, they won't be friends. They'll be associates. They'll come. They'll go. You know, and in the end, at some point, you're gonna have to sit down with this thing. And I understand that. You know, some people go kicking and screaming. I'm not that guy. You know, I chose, like I said, I used the pyramid principle coming up. Everybody at the bottom got to pass through the middle. I chose to stay at the middle. You could chase the mountaintop if you want to, but everybody on the mountaintop ain't staying on the mountaintop. Then when you lose the mountaintop, you start to bug out because you don't know what else there is to do with your life. Why? Because you never maintain perspective. You never maintain balance. You know what I mean? You know, and I've seen it. I've seen this stuff, man, firsthand. Folks get millions of dollars and they bug out completely. I had a friend of mine that got to the mountaintop, and I went to speak to him one day, and he was like, yo, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm like, what? Y'all know what I'm about to say. I'm about to get crazy on the brother. But I was like, what? You will be with me in a minute? I knew you win. But see, money caused people to get stupid and get all souped up. You gassed up on that money, and now when your career is over and you ain't got enough money to get them new dentures in your mouth, you wondering why people walking by you and don't want to give you no money for your GoFundMe. Because you was a clown when you had something. You ain't thought about nobody but yourself. Your family was irrelevant, and then what? So, family first, my brother. You got to keep everything in perspective. I mean, some things just are irreplaceable, man. Your family is your family. The good, the bad, the ugly. Period. Full stop. And if you're going to start tripping and taking family money and, you know, you need a new pair of whatever for your studio and the lights ain't paid, you tripping. You don't have good understanding of your priorities. So you got to just take things in perspective. You know, we only here for a minute. You know, most of this equipment, and God, you know, I had friends of mine that gone. Well-respected producers. I mean, the top of their game. One day I got a call, one of my friends. First of all, just saw him. Second of all, he gets pancreatic cancer, gone 2 months. You here today, gone tomorrow, man. So don't start tripping, man. It's like family first. You understand? So in terms of balance, man, nothing gets above that. You know, you have friends that will come, friends will go. But in this business, man, if you're in it long enough, you're going to see folks come. You're going to see people with a lot of money. You're going to see people with very little. You're going to see people at the mountaintop. You're going to see people at the valleys low. I chose to stay in the middle. You know, and I could tell you story upon story upon story upon story about people that chased that dollar. They were on the top. Today, they ain't got no career. They bagging groceries or whatever is that they're doing, and they wondering like, what just happened? You know, time don't wait for nobody. Next thing you know, bam, 20 years going by. You less than relevant now, and you can't stand it because that's all you ever had was music. All you ever had was music. No other thing happened in your life but music. And now that you old, wrinkly, ain't nobody interested in what you got to offer no more, you bugging out. Why? Because you lost perspective of what's most important. It's that simple. You know, friends come, friends go. But, you know, family first. So I'm off the soapbox. Let's get, Mr. Pirate Brain says he's older than me. 58. Hey, my brother, I'm not too far away, my brother. Not too far away. You know what I mean? Retro, to be honest, don't stop. You're real with it. Well, you know, listen, man. Like I said, man, I've been at this for a while. And I got several people that I know that have had extremely highly successful careers. And I've seen them come up through the ranks. You know, and New York is a hotbed. I mean, listen to this. Let me just give you some perspective on it. And then I'm going to move on to something else. Here's the perspective. I'm going back to the 80s when MIDI was first introduced. There was so many people that were introduced to this new technology that got in at the ground floor. Now, combine that with those who mastered it and at the same time had a degree of talent. You're in New York. Record companies had budgets. They had money. People knew people who knew people. Distribution deals were afforded to most people. If you did not get a major distribution deal, I once upon a time had a distribution deal with a company that fell in the indie system called Great Bay. It was a hotbed. So Sam Ash was the go-to, and Manny's and all these. 48th Street was the spot, B. That was the place. So how could you not bump into? How could you not even know that so and so? There's so many New York producers. Marcus Miller was at the top of his, and still is. Still is. I've known of him since high school when he was in music and art. You know, when I was struggling along as a musician, this guy is playing with Roberta Flack. So I mean, the whole community of musicians, Lenny White, Omar Hakim, all these great musicians in Queens, and even greater ones nowadays like Lonnie Christian and so many other great drummers from New York. The community, as you get older, gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's like, oh yeah, I might not know that guy direct, but I know of him. Then along comes hip hop. You know, Puffy makes a big label. Then you get people like Damon Dash making big labels like Rockefeller. You know, you see these people. You come in contact with these people. You know, so when things are starting to blossom and then suddenly the bubble bursts, which is where we are right now, there's no real music industry per se. You know, it's like then all the fizzle, you know, happens. But I'm probably off on another tangent, most likely. But I'm saying all that to say this is that when you're at something long enough, you've seen a lot. So, I mean, I'm just trying to impart what I've seen firsthand. I know what I wanted to be a part of. Hip-hop culture is something I didn't want to be a part of. I was a jazz musician, you know, for most of my life, you know, and then I became a father early. And then I transitioned into being, you know, a person who loves the tech side of things because I had to take care of myself. It was a whole thing, but you never walk away from things because the community, as you get older, has gotten smaller. I'll give you an example. Ruben Singleton. I'm a big artist right now, R&B artist. I worked on something with him recently, and Ruben and I have been working together for at least the last 12 years. He's like, hey man, you know what? I'm in Nevada, Las Vegas, and I'm working with Teddy Riley. I had no idea that Teddy Riley was in Las Vegas. But he let me hear the track that was working on. Teddy is still killing it. Killing. I mean, these are great producers, man. They still killing. You know, so the community of people that you may think you don't hear from, you don't hear from Babyface, you don't hear from Jimmy Jam. That don't mean that these people have gone away. They are still behind the scenes doing their thing, you know, nurturing artists and still imparting the wisdom that they've learned along the way. You know, so I'm saying that to say that if when I'm sharing is helping someone from some perspective, then again, my mission is completed. E-Man Records LLC says, I took your advice and got the TC Electronics Clarity M, the dopest decision. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, them Duros meters, if you know anything about or the one that's in the I forgot the name of the company. It's a Swedish company. They were the ones that was in the middle of the solid state logic console. Them meters cost a lot of money. So for TC Electronics to come along and make this thing, indispensable. And everybody needs good metering in their studio. You know. Oh, here's another follow-up. How do you balance financial, family stresses, and being creative and maintaining peace at the same time? By saying all the things I said earlier. You know, you got to maintain perspective on what's most important. You know, that's hit me up. You want more stories? I got a ton more. I'm not gonna get into, you know, but it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot of stuff that you know, when you're so dedicated to something, to the point where you become tunnel vision, and then when that thing is taken away, you've been so focused straight for so long that everything on your peripherals become irrelevant. And then once you take that thing away, it's like, okay, what do I focus on next? You don't know, because you never maintain the peripheral. You know, you never looked at what's on the outside to give you that constant, you know, balance. So that's that, my brother. He said the music industry has not been the same since Crush Groove. Man said Crush Groove and Beat Street. Dude, you are dating yourself big time now, man. That was a long time ago. I remember everybody was with breakdancing was in coming up when I was a kid. It was funny, man. People used to have the cardboard downtown, and they used to be having their like dance battles. It was hilarious watching people spinning. You know, oh, I know somebody that broke their neck doing that with the spinning top on their head. He landed wrong, crick. So for those of you who want to get into breakdancing, be very careful. Anywho, my man said, I said Manny's. Yeah, Manny's was the spot. Who was there in the drum department? Because I used to I used to go to Manny's a lot for my sticks. Great drummer. Play with Pat Metheny. I think he was Pat Metheny's second drummer. I forget his name. Nice brother. Really nice brother. But he was Pat Metheny's second drummer. Really nice brother. But there were so many people. Joe Morello. I met him at Terminal Music on 48th Street. So that's what I'm saying. The industry got to, these guys, when they wasn't on the road, you could catch people like Joe Morello. He was working at Terminal in their drum department. What was his, I forget the guy's name. He played with Pat Metheny. He was the second drummer. Anybody want to look that up? In the Pat Metheny group, he was the second drummer in the Seed. After Danny Gottlieb. After Danny Gottlieb, he was the number 2 guy. Great drummer. He worked in Manny's for a little bit. But yeah, man. Retroval. I had bands coming to rehearse every night. No money from my. Okay. Mr. Pirate Brain asks, is Manny's still in business? No. They flattened that entire block. And anybody that's been around will tell you how much of a tragedy that is. It was even tragic because I had friends of mine that worked at the Hit Factory. And what's the other? The Power Station. They were another until Berkeley bailed them out. Berkeley College of Music, for their audio department, bailed them out. All these studios were in danger of just going by the wayside. But Hit Factory turned into condos, and they bulldozed all of 48th Street for some huge office buildings. I think the only thing that's remaining are the guitar shop, one of the guitar shops. And I even think where Right Track was on 48, they bulldozed that as well. So, yeah, man, the era of that being like the happening spot is gone, B. Mr. Pirate Brand, when it became impossible any label to press up vinyl and sell it, it died. But vinyl is making a comeback. Vinyl's making a comeback. I'm trying to get my friend, a very close friend of mine who is a mastering engineer, to advise me on. I'm thinking about buying. I would like to buy a cutting lathe. I know it's very expensive, and I know I don't know how to cut vinyl, but I would like to learn. Because it's making a comeback, and it's an art. It's an art. It's an art. Thanks for tuning in, Louis. Definitely grab one of those. Okay. Yeah. Pat Metheny's bass player. When I did it. Okay. That's Loud, not Loud Mace. Loud Mace, God rest his soul, he just passed away. Mark Egan was Pat Metheny's bass player for a while. Yeah. So let's see. I just want to make sure I got here, Chad Marcel. I'm sorry, brother. I want to get to your question now. You said, what's good tips on making good beats? I'm not the beat guy. I would suggest, if you want to, Stefan Guy is one person you could watch on YouTube. Wayne.wave, he's a good guy to follow for that type of music. However, I'm gonna give you a little story about. Excuse me, I'm up there burping all in the mic. A lot of people are making beats and are attempting to sell their wares on these. You can buy the beats online. However, I'm gonna tell you a little story. I was right before this whole thing happened. I was getting a job where the person was from Thailand. The producer was from Thailand, and he sent the tracks that he sent over were killing. A Thai producer. I'm like, whoa, tracks were killing. I realized what is keeping those who are making a lot of money doing this thing away from those who are not. If you're going to get into the beat making business, get all in. Get all in. Go all in. I'm talking about make sure you invest in the best preamps. Make sure you invest in the best of technology with regards to that. Because if you are not, and if you're relying wholly on solely on something like Logic or some other DAW to give you your end all be all, then you might wind up coming up short and wondering the reason why I'm not selling as much as some of the other guys. These guys that are making these, like this guy here, that are making music in this fashion are investing a lot on the back end of the technology to give them the competitive edge that they have. I'm talking about sonically. Like they're investing in good compression. You know, like we were talking about the distressor earlier. I looked at one guy's site. I'm like, okay, it's no wonder you're selling a lot of music. Like, it's no wonder you're one of the top sellers on these sites. Why? Because you're investing a lot on the sonic goodness of what's going to make something sound like it was, you know, made for the radio. You know, they're investing in the sonic part. So I would say make sure you have a good EQ, good preamps. Make sure you when you can, don't use and rely on plugins wholly and solely to give you your character sound. Use some outboard gear to treat it, and then, you know, make some good financial investments with regards to the outboard gear, and you'll begin to see. And right nowadays, it's not expensive. You can get a good preamp for next to nothing. That's going to give you the girth, because your genre of music is very bass heavy. So to not have something that's going to be you know, give you the girth that bass would have, you know, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not being able to make something that's sonically competitive, in other words, you know. So do yourself that favor and study the masters, people who are doing this, you know, for a living, you know. And if you want to reach out, like I said, there's plenty of people on YouTube that are doing that. But if you're trying to become competitive, you have to level up. You got to level up. You know, you got to level up. Ain't no need you trying to. I remember, you know, when I bought my first Pro mic, you could hear the difference between, you know, between something that's substandard and something that's made of good quality. You know, substandard, subsounds, substandard. You know, and Chad. Yeah, I'm talking about, you know, what you told, make tips on making beats. Like I said, I'm not the guy that can give tips. You know, but there are plenty of people on YouTube that can guide you in that direction and give you good insight as to how that's done. You know, plenty of people. Wayne.wave is someone I really do respect. His ability as a young producer. To me, he's the package. Wayne.wave. You know, he's the guy. He's the guy. And then Stefan Guy is another one. You know, he's a British brother. Both of whom I invited to participate in today's live stream. I don't know if they have, even if they peeked inside the door. I don't know if they did or did not. But those are two good resources to start. If you're trying to find out people who are really doing it, that's a good place. Wayne.wave is, I'd say, first and, well, I'm not going to say first and second, but Stefan Guy and Wayne.wave. Check those two YouTube channels and you should be on the path to right. So if there aren't any further questions, I'm about to wrap up. And I've been yammering for, what they said, 2 hours. 2 hours. Real fast, share your thoughts on analog mix bus compression. Depends on the genre. Tell me the genre, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. And yeah, I've been blabbing. It says 2 hours and 17 minutes. Brother, long-winded. You get old, you get long-winded. You know. So yeah, just tell me what genre of music you're talking about, because mixed bus compression is important, and how you utilize it. How you utilize it is important. Hip hop. Okay. Be very careful. Be very careful what you purchase for hip hop, especially because it requires like a VCA compressor may be a little bit too much, you know, and a FET compressor may be a tad bit more forgiving, you know, for vocals, to get it to sit right, to tame the bass a little bit better. A FET compressor might work. See, VCAs some of them are very aggressive sounding, and unless you have a decent enough VCA compressor where you can adjust the release time and the attack times independently, you may not like the way it sounds. You know, it may come off as a little bit too aggressive for you. And there is no one end all be all type of mixed bus compressor. However, when you're applying a compressor to the mixed bus, the object is just to get everything to sit. The purpose you want it to sit is for the destination it is going to. You know, so you definitely don't want to over compress, because then it's going to sound squeezed up. You know, so the object is to get it to tame the sonics, not to abuse it by over compressing it. Because sometimes, like I said, the attack times on certain compressors can be so aggressive to the point where it takes the character out of whatever it is that you're compressing. That's whether vocal or instrument. You know, so you don't want that. You know, sometimes you need the transients to get through so that at least gets through. And then you just want to tame what's being said or what's being played for the long haul of the program material. Like if it's a 2-track mix going off somewhere, you just want to be able to control. You know, but if you over compress it, and if you don't have good enough facility with how to set a compressor in a musical circumstance, then you might wind up being turned off by the way the compressor sounds. You know, I don't know if you heard me talking earlier about the Avalon. You know, if you don't take the time to learn how to properly set a compressor, you might wind up being turned off by it. Be like, this is a piece of crap, and you wind up throwing it away. Whereas the issue was not the equipment, the issue was with your level of understanding on how to get what you needed from the piece of equipment. Because everything you buy is not going to be exactly what you need. It has to work. So that's what I'm saying. You know, you got to figure out, okay, like I was listening to Jay-Z's Brush Your Shoulder Off, and I'm like, what makes that work? And then I listened to it. It was the organic nature of the cut. It wasn't overdone, and I think that's a good thing. You know, when Timbaland did it, I mean, because he has a way that he worked, you know, and it worked for him, you know, and then the track worked for Jay-Z in the end, you know. But when you want to know why he's a top at what he does, other than his talent, is what he surrounds himself with from a technical perspective as well as a production perspective. So you got to go back and you got to listen carefully to what it is and say, how can I recreate that thing? And he's an email away. Now, mind you, everybody ain't going to share their intellectual property, if you will, or their techniques with you, but you'll figure it out. Ain't but about what? Optical, FET, VCA. Those are probably the top 3 used in most studios. Very few people, maybe some other folks that like the way diode bridge compressors sound, they will use it for that circumstance. But you could get one of the three. You know, the DBX 166 that I have down here. Those are good. And now the Clark and Technic, that's optical with the FET for the 1176. You have a lot of options, but you're going to let your ears be the guide in the end because you know what you want to hear. And you always have to A-B. This is the pro stuff. This is what I'm shooting for. Always put yourself in this situation where you can go back and forth and compare your mix. Because if it's falling short, you're going to be like, it doesn't, the bass on this is, why does my bass sound thin? Then you go back and realize, oh, they recorded it in this studio, and this studio has that type of console, so I need that sort of preamp, or I need that sort of EQ to run. You'll know. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. It's not that complicated, you know, but you definitely have to listen carefully. And Timbaland got some big ears, man. Now I'm like, what makes this work? Why do people like it so much? You know, then I'm listening carefully. I'm like, there's such an organic nature to what he was doing. Now, I'm not a big, you know, consumer of hip hop at all, but I know he's one of the top dogs, you know, and there's a reason why. You know, what makes Michael Jordan Michael Jordan? I keep using the basketball analogy. Michael Jordan had a work ethic that maybe young ball players don't have today. That was why Michael's a champion. Why is Timbaland a champion? What makes him do what he does so well? You've got to figure that out. You got to do your own due diligence. You have to go and do your research and find out so that I can be just as competitive as this guy. What did he do? How did he do it? This is where I want to go. If you aim at nothing, you're going to hit nothing every time. You got to have a point of reference. And I'm suspecting you're a young person. So if you just constantly shooting in the dark, then you need to focus on something. Timbaland is a good focus. So I would say start there. Armando says he got the Clarity M. Excellent. You can't go wrong with him, man. And great live stream. Tim Likes Music says, great live stream. I appreciate knowledge, insight, and experience. Well worth the watch. Well, listen, my brother, I do thank you for tuning in. If we hung out together, you know that I'm a bit of a kook. And I try to be a joy to be around, especially if we're working together, because I know one likes to be around a person that's a drag. I got a story about that too, man. I was on a date, man. Not a date like dating a girl date, but a record date. And man, piano player was like, God, man, Jesus, one of the worst people to be. I mean, just, you know, like a drag to be around. You jack up the process when you a drag, you know? So if it's a creative process, you want to have fun. And right now, this is fun for me. So, yeah, it's all good. Here's another question. What's a good low budget EQ under $500? The Chameleon Labs makes an inductor based EQ for 500 series. I don't know if you want to go 500 series route. Nowadays it's very cheap to do that. But the fact that this man wound his own inductors is reason enough. Point blank, full stop. He hand wound his own inductors. Let that sink in for a minute. He hand wound his own inductors. The last person to do that was probably Rupert Neve. So again, let that sink in for a minute. I've been reaching out to them to try and get a review copy. I can only imagine that it sounds killer. But you can't go wrong with an inductor-based EQ. That is $349 US, and plus the cost of entry for the 500 series. And again, I don't think you would go wrong if you went with that EQ. I would start there. And if you low on funds, then I would say something like the JDK Audio EQ R24, which has some nice huge transformers in the back. It's going to be a little on the light side, so you might have to get a little heavy-handed to get what you're looking for from it. But it has 4 bands, and to be able to treat those low mids, you can't beat that. You can't beat it, because most of these EQs nowadays are 3-band EQs, and where a lot of problem and mastering engineer issues you might have are in the low mids 350 750 range. So if you could treat that with a 4-band, then that's even better. That's like $1,000. The JDK Audio is like $1,000 for 4 bands. So that's a good choice as well. Thoughts on active monitor controllers versus passive. I don't know. I think a good way to balance out monitor controllers, active or passive, is to get the Clarity M. Why? Because you have an independent source looking at the program material, giving you real-time feedback on your sonics. So a lot of people will say, "Oh, you should get the what's the one, the expensive one?" Or I always get this one from people. "Oh, your monitor controller is whack. It's a Personus." Whatever. But you should get the help me out with the company. I'm old. The Dangerous Music monitor controller, which is great. Don't get me wrong. The thing is like $1,000. Who got $1,000 to be throwing in a monitor controller? Those who, are making pop music. I don't do pop music. I do jazz. I do independent projects. And frankly, $1,000 is a little rich for my blood. But to be able to say that, oh well, your controller's imparting a sonic footprint to your monitors. I mean, I hear this argument, and at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, if you want to be really sure, then get a something like the Clarity M to give you an impartial perspective on what's your sonics look like from a frequency standpoint. Where is it bottom heavy? Is it top shy? At least you'll get that from a visual perspective. But people want to, they want to shout on monitor controllers. So, my feeling is whatever you can afford, start there. And with the extra money, at some point, add the Clarity M and from a visual perspective. So at least you can see exactly what's happening sonically to your sound. Ian Curtis says, can you explain the 500 series, how to get started? Well, nowadays, like I said, for $249 from Midas, you can get what's a decent chassis. I had a pretty bad experience with it because I wanted to rack mount it. Now, for sometimes what happens when you stick things in a rack, if the transformers are not shielded well enough, it'll pick up electromagnetic noise. That happened. It didn't work out for me. I wound up just sticking with my API. Now, the cost of entry is the chassis. Nowadays, you don't have to spend $500-$600 for it. $249 gets you in the door. Now, how to get started? If you can, I would say, here's a good place to start. The only ones that are making decent enough, other than NEVE, AMS NEVE right now, and I'm just happen to like that sound and the Focusrite sound. If you have to, get started with a good vocal microphone, get at least the Heritage 73. That's not that expensive in the used market. It's about $750. You could go vintage Vintech, the 573 with the Vintech. That's about $700. But you want a good preamp. You want a decent compressor. The Fredenstein Artistic Series, I think they make a good FET compressor. So if you're trying to put together a decent vocal channel strip, a good compressor by Fredenstein, a decent enough, like I said, the Chameleon Labs 3-band inductor bass EQ is a good start, as well as one of the Vintex or maybe a Heritage Audio 573, 1073 clone. Those are good places to start to get started, to give you a good perspective on some decent sonics going straight down into Pro Tools. That's a good place to start. Let's see. Let's take another question. Robbie Sco, my brother. Hi there. Thoughts on using Nectar 3 RX7, running those on FS on SM7B laptop? Fan is so loud. Now, not familiar with. Nectar isotope plugins running SM7B. Give me a little bit of background on that. You see, if you follow me for any duration of time, you know I've detoxed myself of plugins. I don't know if you've caught any of my other statements about that, but I try to not get too caught up in the plugins. I know there are a lot of good, great plugins out there, but I think at some point, I think it gets down to you getting it right outside the box, and then the plugins become less relevant. And that's my opinion. But the SM7B, I like that microphone a lot, a whole heck of a lot. As a matter of fact, that's the same microphone that Michael Jackson used on, I think, the Thriller record. Yeah, Michael Jackson used it on the Thriller record. So it's a great microphone. Great microphone. Requires a buttload of gain though. As most dynamic microphones do. So that might be part of your problem. If it's picking up the fan noise, it's requiring the microphone is requiring you to put a lot of gain into the circuitry to get it up to level. At the opposite end of that, I'm not sure what you're using it for. If you're using it solely for vocals, then you may want to consider a more quiet condenser microphone like the Lewitt Audio that I'm talking about right now, which requires maybe not 56 decibels of preamp gain, maybe somewhere in the 28 to 31 decibels, which is going to keep, if it has a good noise floor in the preamp, then you get a quiet sonics from the microphone, then you have the best of both worlds. But if you could get it right outside the box, then half your problems are solved. But the problem that you're having right now is that dynamic mics, as well as ribbons, require sometimes upwards of 50 decibels of gain from your preamp. So if your preamp can give away that nice clean gain from within, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to crank it louder than you want to go. And then, of course, when you crank a preamp too loud, you start to pick up a lot of ambient noise, So Avalon Major says, other than a conditioner, any other tips on cleaning power in the studio? Yes, hire yourself a real electrician. That's it in a nutshell. Because you got to make sure that if you have a separate line, and that's what I did when I was building my place. I had a friend of mine who was an electrician. You need a ground. You need to make sure that your circuitry for your studio is grounded. Period. Are you going to have hum, stray noises, and it's a pain in the behind to try and troubleshoot. And don't start adding equipment. I'm telling you, the best thing you can do is not no power. You got to make sure you got a separate ground connection for the studio. It has to be separate from the house or separate from whatever else the environment that you're in. So you have to have the circuitry dedicated at the panel for the studio. And the only one who could do that is an electrician, So the cloud lifter. And Robbie said he got a cloud lifter to help with the gain. It's a nice way to Yes, the cloud lifter works very well. It's a good quick fix. A little expensive, but yes, it does work. So how am I keeping my studio cool, Trusty Studio? I have portable air conditioners. That was another thing. When I had the place first built and done, I wasn't doing the level of work that I'm doing now. I was doing more arrangements for producers, and the requirement from a operating perspective, for producers was a lot less than it is now. That turned into requirements from having vocalists come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, fast forward to now, I have air conditioning for the control room as well as for the live room, and both of them are portable, so I can roll them away and pull them out whenever I need them. And heating as well, you know. Yes, the heat from the gear does get very warm. Very, very warm. Okay. So we gotta. So any other questions? Any other questions? And to answer the question about cooling, that was another project of mine that I was taking on this year. I was gonna knock down a wall that I have in the live room and have a mini split system come in. And then this thing hits, and now, like I said, all that has to be put on hold, the renovation perspective. But that was one of the things I was trying to get done. Can you do an audio demo video of the Lewitt and how it sounds through the WA-73? Awesome, I would imagine. Yeah, I did. Actually, I compared. Or was that through? No, I think that was through the Focusrite. No, that was through the Focusrite. Yes, I can. However, to answer the WA-73 thing, I think I did it with the WA-73, but I was less than impressed for a few reasons. I just thought it sounded better coming off of the Focusrite ISA 1. I think it was because with the ISA, you can dial in the load impedance a lot better. You know, so I was more able to closely match the load impedance on the ISA versus a fixed impedance on this of 1500. You see, impedance can change the character of a microphone for the better or for worse. Some people use it to their sonic advantage to get something other than what the tone of the mic sounds like. I'm not that guy. I want the sound, I want as clean a sound, especially if you're doing acoustic music. I want it to be as clean as possible, you know, and matching your impedance to the microphone is very important. That is the reason why, you know, people will always match like a 87 with a 1073 because, you know, the impedance matches almost perfectly, you know, from a sonic perspective for certain instruments. So yeah, man, you might want to pay attention to that, but I don't think I was as impressed with the Lewitt coming off that WA-73 as I thought I would be, you know, versus like maybe a 47 going through a WA-73 or maybe an 87 going through a WA-73. I think I was less than impressed with it in that fashion, but a good match, and this is not expensive. These are not expensive in the used market. You could get from $300, but it has an excellent sound, very clean. You could always add girth, you know, on the back end. It has inserts, so if you wanted to put a EQ in the insert just to give it a little bit more fatness, or compressor, you know, it has inserts built into it, so it's even better, you know. And plus, like I said, they're not expensive at all in the used market. I wish I had. Oh man, here's a good one. STM Film says, man, I'm only 32 and I wish I knew what I know now 10 years ago. Listen, you are young. You got a long way to go, man. Don't look at it like that, man. Don't look at it like that. Your best years are ahead of you. The only thing you have to do is, like say, make sure that you're an empty vessel, because some of these 32-year-olds, you can't tell them nothing. You can't tell some of y'all nothing. They're souped up. And don't let you have, like I said about my friend who was at the top of his game in his 30s. I went to talk to him one day. He's like, yo, I'll be right with you. Like, you know, you can't get all gassed up. You know, the empty vessel is the one that's going to be able to impart and give. You can't give to other people in the future when you're in your 40s and 50s what you never experienced firsthand. So here you are, 32 years old, you know, and you're filling yourself with knowledge that when you're 42, you're going to have all these experiences that you're going to share with someone who's 22. So think your best years are ahead of you. Just keep learning. Being a willing and empty vessel that's going to take in information, because you cannot impart what you don't possess yourself. You cannot give out what you don't have. You know, so as long as you stay teachable, you're going to be on top of your game for the rest of your game. You know what I mean? So that's the most important thing I could give to you right now. But 32, please, wait till you hit your 40s. Then we have a talk. A talk. That's how we say it in New York. Talk. Okay. Let's move on. Trusty Studio says, more of my clients like recording next to me versus being in a separate room. What's my thoughts? What? Prince recorded when doves fly at the console? Whatever works. You know, whatever works. Now, by the same token, if your acoustics are not up to par, that might work against you. You know, I would, if I were you, you know, pay more attention to that, because, you know, you have the comb filtering effect that can happen when things are, you know, like, you know, the sound you get when you clap your hands in like the staircase, clang, clang. That happens in a smaller way when you're recording in an environment that's kind of compact and tight. You know, so you got to pay attention to your acoustics, and if you have a spot in the control room that works, it works. John Kilgore, look him up. Good friend of mine in New York. John Kilgore records vocals in the control room all the time. You know, and top people. He does a lot of Broadway work. He works with a lot of top New York session singers. Doesn't so, you know, don't worry about the environment. Just make sure that your environment is conducive to recording good sound. You know, because if it's not acoustic from an acoustic perspective, you're gonna have a problem. You know, phasing is real. You know, comb filtering is real, and you'll hear that swooshing sound and a spoinging sound when they hit loud notes. You know, if it's not conducive to you doing vocals in the control room, then, you know, I don't have a problem with it as long as it works. As a matter of fact, when I was working with Dolores Bowman on her record, we cut the demo vocals. If you listen to you on iTunes, go to Goodness and Mercy is the cut. She was singing on the 57. We were writing the cut, and we were working on the vocals, and she cut the whole vocal. Sitting in a chair, the chair that's right here to my left, sitting in a chair with a 57 in her hand. And then when we went to do the real vocal, we couldn't replace it. I was like, we might as well use the demo. If it works, it works. But sometimes it don't work. You know, so only you can be the judge of that. You know, like I said, if your environment is conducive to recording vocals and other instruments, go for it. Like I said, Prince recorded When Doves Fly, they said at the console, playing all the instruments. So if he can do it, anybody can do it, you know. Another question, could that warm audio mix bus comp be used on vocals? I wouldn't. No, I would not use the bus comp on vocals. No, sir, Bob. Nope. It's a bus compressor. It's a tool for a particular purpose. And it's for treating groups of instruments like drums. I would even hesitate at using it on bass. I would just use it for its intended purpose, which is bus compression. You know, I would stick with that. Here's another one. I have a TLM49 going through a WA76 into the WA73 and then into the pump. No, you don't want that mic running through a compressor first. You want to go into the other way around. You want the mic to go into the, I hope that's, maybe you took things out of sequence, but you want the mic to go into, because you technically can run the signal. You're going to get a less than amplified signal. Well, I don't think that's true. No, because the mic has to be pro. So I think you just took it out of sequence in the statement. But yes, to say the TLM49, I do like that microphone. WA73, yeah, that's a good pair. And WA76, yes, that's yes. And you thought of adding the Clarkin Technic KT2 just to see what sounds. 2 compressors going in. The only time you really need to use 2 compressors is if you want one set because don't forget, this has a 10-to-1 compression ratio, but it has a slower attack time. You know, so if you want to play with the release and attack times for an effect to get the compressor to do more of a control circumstance for dynamic vocals, then yes, you can use it. But I would just stick with using one compressor by and large to tame any instrument or vocal if you can, and just learn how to be a little judicious with the way, you know, the compressor is set, and you should get the results that you're looking for most of the time. Okay. Somebody says it's on replay now, so I guess I have extended my stay on here, and I've got to okay. So with that said, if you all have any more questions, feel free to email me. Thank you, Mr. Private Brain, for that information. I did not know that it would replay. Feel free to reach out. I hope I was able to impart some good information to you all. Again, we should do this again sometime soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. And Deborah, thank you for watching as well. I appreciate you. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me an email. The information is on the About page. And with that, I'm going to say have a good afternoon, stay safe, and peace.